Welcome to the FounderVideo podcast, an interview series bringing you the latest and greatest info on B2B marketing, revenue operations, and go-to-market strategy from respected experts. Here is your host, Will Martin.
Today we are here with Sam Dunning, founder of Breaking B2B, SEO expert, and we're here to talk about the future of search, among other topics. So yeah, welcome, Sam.
Hey, Will. Thanks for having me on, man. Looking forward to the chat.
Yes, sir. So the first question that I've been asking to all of the guests that come to the podcast is, who is, in your case, Sam Dunning, right? And most importantly, what do people need to understand about your past to understand who you are today as a professional, as the founder of Breaking B2B, most importantly?
Yeah. So in short, I run Breaking B2B. Our tagline is B2B SEO and websites for revenue, not vanity. I also host a top 10 B2B marketing podcast called Breaking B2B, where we interview marketing practitioners, share actionable tips, and I share solo episode on what's working today to drive leads for your website, SEO, and other B2B marketing ideas. So why the background, I guess the long story short is a lot of the content I produce is around those themes, really. What's working now in B2B that's not really fluff, that's actually going to fuel your sales team with qualified pipeline, aka sales calls, demo requests, or leads that they can have a solid conversation with that has a good chance of converting to a one deal, cash in the bank. The reason I am so passionate about that is because a lot of my life has actually been spent selling. It's like if you rewind 13 years ago, one of my first jobs was after I was in retail, which I absolutely hated and got out of as soon as I possibly could, dealing with the general public. One of my first jobs after that was at a web agency where I basically came on board as a jack of all trades. So did a bit of sales, did a bit of project management, did a bit of account management, helped build websites, wireframes, literally thrown in 13 years ago, right in the fire, in the flames of startup life, trying to learn everything from day one, literally chucked in at the deep end, which I think is probably one of the best ways you can learn how business works. Like I say, doing everything from calling leads to trying to close deals to managing accounts, managing projects, building websites, and eventually realizing that SEO is kind of one of the services that I want to hone in on when it comes to kind of getting, because we were focused on getting our own business found on Google, and then we started offering it to clients. And over the years, that's become one of my passions of how organic search can drive leads for B2B service and B2B technology businesses. And that's why a lot of the content I share is both about that and around making your website your best salesperson for your business, really.
Nice, interesting. Yeah, working with the public, definitely not the best. Yeah, I agree with that. Okay, so let's get into the nitty gritty. What do you think? Because with the rise of AI powered content, especially in the SEO space, and Google Ads becoming more and more of a red ocean, companies spending inefficiently, etc., is SEO dead? And not only SEO, but search engines as a whole. Should we be worried about website content's performance when, sooner rather than later, we're going to get AI powered answers to everything in the first click? What do you think about that?
Yeah, man. SEO's dead. Cold calling's dead. Cold email's dead. LinkedIn ads are dead. Everything's dead, at least according to some tech marketers on LinkedIn. Yeah, I think the problem is, especially with B2B tech marketers, is we've got a bias towards basically towards ourselves. Like, it's almost like we're talking in an echo chamber. If you're on LinkedIn and if you're not connected to a lot of B2B tech marketers, it's probably for the better, because they kind of get caught up on their own hype. So that's why you see so much stuff around like SEO's dead, no one uses Google anymore. Whereas it's such a false claim, especially in B2B. Like, there's so many industries outside of SaaS where prospects are constantly using Google, whether they're searching for the solution directly, whether they're comparing you to alternatives, whether they're looking up information in your niche. Like, Google is a primary part of that. Yes, there's many more elements to complex, high-ticket B2B sales, be it speaking to your peers. Maybe it involves trade shows, depending on the sector you're in. Maybe people are chatting about your offer in private Slack communities. Maybe they are engaging in podcasts, YouTube, and Google search plays a piece of the ecosystem. Is it going to close your every deal? No. Is it going to drive some high-intent opportunities? Sure. So, yeah, Google search is far from dead, nor is SEO, but to your point about AI, is that going to replace stuff? Well, Google dropped an interesting update at the time of recording this, probably about a month ago, to do with, it was around a spam update. So essentially it showed us that you've got to be more careful and more relevant with the content that you're putting out. So if you are, there's a ton of websites you might have seen. I can't remember the guy. I think his name was Jake, but I can't remember his surname. But a while ago, maybe even a year ago, he was doing a ton of posts on LinkedIn around the great AI heist of SEO. And he was sharing like these crazy charts of like how he took these articles, these blog pages from like 0 traffic to like 100K plus in a super short space of time through basically GPT AI generated content. But that guy went quiet around a month or two ago when this update rolled out, and a ton of websites got penalized that were just spamming out AI content. And there's two parts to it, right? Like you said, eventually Google are going to roll out something called SGE, Search Generative Experience, where for certain queries, Google would give an answer to that above the fold, meaning that you don't have to click through to a traditional website. But are Google going to destroy search with that? I'd be surprised. I mean, it's in their own interests not to have the whole above the fold answering a question, because they need to have some real estate for ads. And they did say some time ago, when they do SGE and they basically give you instant answers to queries, that there will still be some like link throughs to pages. And the other thing I'd say is it's going to be quite nuanced, right? If you're building out a keyword strategy, a content strategy to SEO that is purely simple questions or queries, like how to do something simple, like, I don't know, how to build a landing page or some super simple question like that, then yes, it's going to be replaced by AI. Whereas if your SEO content strategy and keyword strategy is fueled by real customer research and insights that's more niche and specific to your industry, then it's less likely to be replaced by AI. And then the other half of that coin is if you're building out content for your, whether it's your service pages, industry pages, product pages, feature pages, pricing pages, or even blog articles on your website, and that is AI generated, not only could it impact your site in terms of your rankings from Google, if you want that content to actually build trust, resonate, and convert prospects that land on your pages, if they're seeing words like 10x revenue, supercharged, all-in-one wizardry, do you think they're going to really build trust in your brand, or they're just going to think like this is some AI nonsense and just bounce off to a competitor that gives them a better experience? So that's my 2 cents.
Interesting. What do you think then of social media platforms becoming engines for search? Because, Chris Walker has been talking about this too, how TikTok can become like, and YouTube Shorts or any other platform, even Reddit too. There are other platforms in which they are more niche and that you can find deeper insights when you're especially in buying mode. Do you think that will compete with search, or, are you looking at ways to combine efforts? Because at the end of the day, it's the same concept, right? Is how to rank content so that people that search for a specific keyword will find you on their way, right? And that could be applied to social too, as we see platforms becoming more and more of a search engine. What do you think about that?
The thing with folks like, this is not a pinpoint at Chris Walker, but anyone like that, they've got their own agenda. So all the content folks like Chris Walker are going to post is going to be naturally biased towards their own service. In his case, he was offering demand generation, demand creation services from Refine Labs, which he stepped down from a while back. So he was always going to have the bias that organic search is dying and you need to invest more in building up your own demand on social networks like LinkedIn and building out your podcast and kind of finding new prospects. But yes, you're right in the sense that there are communities like Reddit where you can get rich information on certain topics that are written by the horse's mouth, so actual people that are doing the stuff. But at least for now and for the foreseeable future, there's still going to be a ton of people, even in tech, even in SaaS, and many industries outside of that, be it, I don't know, whether it is industrial industries, construction, whatever. There's so many more industries to B2B than tech. Folks are still going to search on Google when they're in market for, I don't know, best X provider, or best X tool, or they're going to compare to alternatives. They're still going to do these classic keyword searches. So if they're in market, they're typically going to compare 2 or 3 vendors. And if your website shows up top on organic search, you're still going to have a solid chance on the basis that your page content resonates with them, talks about the problem you fix, the impact of not fixing it, gives them some social proof, answers their questions, and makes it easy for them to get in touch with you. If you're doing what we call bottom of the funnel SEO for the foreseeable future anyway, if that's done in a strategic way that's built towards content that actually your target clients care about, it's still going to drive impact. Not to disregard social at all, because like I said earlier, B2B marketing is an ecosystem. There's many touch points that your target market, especially for big ticket deals, need to take, be it search, be it checking out on social, be it listening to your podcast, listen to your YouTube content, whatever, before they're going to be ready to kind of take that demo or eventually invest in your offer. So it all works together.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed. And there's, of course, like there are always certain bias. You got to take a look at what that person is doing or rooting for, and based on that, they are obviously going to lean into different insights that benefit them the most, right? I agree, and it's worth noting that, of course, it's always an ecosystem, and it's not like you gotta. It's easy to over focus in one or the other because of the hype in the LinkedIn echo chamber, right? And it's, got to take that into account.
This podcast is brought to you by FounderVideo. We'll cut your LinkedIn ads costs by at least 50% with natural-looking creatives that prospects actually want to consume. Just have an expert in your C-suite show up to a 90-minute interview once a month and let us take care of the rest. Turn LinkedIn ads from an accepted line item expense into a scalable revenue channel that fits into your go-to-market strategy. Book a free consultation at FounderVideo.io.
Let's talk about the current state of branded versus non-branded keywords or terms in B2B for SEO, right? From what you see with clients, which drives the most results and which do companies invest the most, and are they doing it right at all?
So branded search, and to be clear, you mean the company's own name, right?
Yeah, and everything related to that.
Yeah, so a lot of especially in tech, like B2B tech, a lot of companies that will come on board with, they have a ton of branded search. So they might be as high as like 95, even 97% branded search right now. But that's because a lot of tech companies, B2B and B2B companies in general, typically ignore SEO until the last moment possible. So they'll totally neglect organic search. They'll invest in everything but. So they'll invest in paid ads, they'll invest in outbound sales, they'll invest in, I don't know, trade shows, events, sponsorships if relevant, depending on where their target markets hang out. It's not usually until the absolute last moment when they're kind of constantly seeing competitors above them, when like target clients are searching for, I don't know, their service, their software, their solution, comparing them to alternatives, searching for information around their niche. When they constantly see that, that's probably the tipping point of when they realize, oh, we should probably invest in kind of anything that isn't our brand related. Of course, if you've built your demand up and you're a huge player in your space, it's not as relevant. I.e., if you've had a ton of funding and you're like a big player in your space, be it Gong for call recordings or Salesforce when it comes to CRM, it's almost less relevant because they're just so well known and they are the go-to in the industry. But if you're not the go-to in your industry and you are a smaller player, you're not going to have that much branded search unless you've done a ton of demand generation and folks in your target markets know you. Like if you've, I don't know, built up a big reputation through a specific podcast or through YouTube or through, I don't know, LinkedIn ads or organic content on social and that kind of stuff. So people are really familiar with the brand and searching for it directly. But for a lot of industries, they just don't have that demand. They just don't have that awareness around their brand. So not many people are searching for what they do on Google. They're not searching directly for the company name. So that's when non-branded search, that's most of what we do. Get companies found for anything that's non-brand. So it can play into that brand play, but it means that people that aren't aware of you yet, but are searching for what you do, how you help, comparing you against others, looking for alternatives, looking to improve a process, maybe frustrated with how they're getting the job done at the moment, then kind of getting them shown up it makes sense both in Google paid search or Google organic search when it's done right.
Absolutely. So what would you say it's the process when you guys take on an account, like how do you look at the distribution between branded and non-branded? And when tackling the non-branded terms, if they haven't been working on those, how do you approach it? How do you structure it from, do you start with top of funnel, middle, you go with the low hanging fruit at the bottom, or what's the process there?
Yeah. So we always look for the bottom of the funnel first, because we want to start with getting inbound sales leads. So most B2B companies want to fuel their sales team with a steady flow of qualified demos, call requests, or similar. So that's why they'll usually bring us on board, and we want to make that happen in the shortest time possible. One of the biggest mistakes that companies make with SEO is going for traffic or going for random rankings, so kind of vanity metrics, opposed to what's going to actually drive perhaps less traffic, but more qualified inbound. So that's where companies might make the mistake of kind of going on to Hrefs or SEMrush and kind of looking at keywords that are maybe low difficulty, but have a ton of traffic, maybe how-to blog posts or best way to do X or top 10 versions of Y. And they'll see that it gets a ton of traffic. They'll build out these killer articles. They might even rank for them, but then they'll wonder, like, why is this driving traffic but not converting? And like you alluded to there, it's not bottom of the funnel stuff. So people land on the page, get the information they need, and just bounce off. At best, they might sign up for your newsletter, check out your podcast, which has a long-term play, but you're better off doing that later along the line. So yeah, the first thing you want to do is I recommend firing up like a Google Doc, a Google Sheet, getting with a sales team, getting with a revenue marketing team, or if you're a founder, do this yourself, and make a list of what I call your money offerings and your money niches in inverted commas. So what that means is, what are the main solutions we want to sell that are of use to our target clients, that we provide real value to, that fixes a real problem, and our top 3 offers perhaps. And also, what are the money niches? What are the industries, the target markets that have a demand for that, have that problem that we fix, but most importantly, have the cash to invest in the offer. So it's not going to be targeting industries that we'll kind of get on sales calls with, but then say that's way too expensive. We want folks that aren't going to blink an eyelid when we get them on sales calls, when they know the price. So for example, this is quite literally what I did. My site, breakingb2b.com, we launched back in February. At the time of recording now, we're April, so 2 months ago. We use this strategy. We're already ranking kind of page 1 for a bunch of terms. So in my case, we mainly deal with like SaaS companies, B2B service, and a bunch of other niches like fintech, etc. So we listed out those as the industries, and our main offers in our case were B2B SEO, B2B web design. And we basically made a list of all these industries and built out service or offer pages for each one of these industries plus niches. So a modifier might be for us B2B SEO agency, B2B SaaS SEO agency, B2B fintech SEO agency, etc. But you can do the same depending on your relevant niche and your industry you serve. And how do you get this content ranking? So once you've built out this list of the main offers, main services plus niches that you want to serve within that, how do you build content that ranks? Well, the simplest way is to quite literally Google the keyword, look at the top 3 organic search results, review those pages that are ranking, make notes on them, and look for ways that you can one-up them. So in my case, these were kind of service-based pages, but let's get out of my niche for a second. Maybe we're in the, let's say the proposal game, and maybe our niche is proposal software for sellers. Let's pretend. So let's say that was one of our target keywords. That could be quite high intent because you're not typing that for fun. You're typing that because you need to get some software CRM for your sales team. So you look at those top 3 organic results, you look at those pages, you look how they're structured, and typically it'll probably be like, this is the problem we solve, this is how we solve it, here's some social proof, here's a call to action. And you look, the way you can get content to outrank them, this is basically a slightly tweaked version of what's called the skyscraper technique, is you look to blow this page out of the water. So you might say, look, this is the problem that you're probably facing. This is our solution. Here's some unique statistics on the industry. Here's an embedded YouTube video walking through the prospect and a bit of a how-to. And the good thing about embedding a video on a page is quite often that can improve your click-through rate, because sometimes in the search results, it can show the little thumbnail next to your page ranking. And you can rank in the video section, so you can get two rankings from one if you upload that to YouTube. Then you might have a kind of walkthrough on the process. You might have some industry stats. You might have an FAQ section that expands, that addresses all the common questions and objections you get on the topic. So basically making your page more exhaustive, more detailed, more helpful. As Google dropped an update some time ago called the Helpful Content Update. It's a framework called EEAT, Experience, Expertise, Authority, Trust. And if you can show that you've got hands-on experience and authority in the subject, Google's more likely to favor your page. So if you can get a subject matter expert, either yourself or a team member that's actually writing, that has hands-on experience with customers, knows what they're talking about, knows the problem you fix, and your content has a better chance to rank. So, and yeah, you want to do basic technical things. So for example, if you're building a page that needs to rank for a certain keyword, be it sales proposal tools for sellers, that has to be structured in the URL. Probably want to be in your H1 title tag. Just those basic things to think about. So you want to build out all those pages for your money niches, for your money offers. That would make sense as a B2B service or solution provider. And then quite often quick wins. If we jump back, let's say to SaaS, you might want to look at keywords like alternatives. So we recently got a SaaS company page one rankings, like top rankings in 30 days, and started driving inbound just by making a list of their top 10 competitors by looking at G2. We, based on customer research, we made bullet points of their differentiators in the market, how they stand out, problems they fix that others don't. And then what you'll usually search is if you search for like competitor alternative, so I don't know, any software alternative, it's usually a listicle, like top 10 alternatives, top 15 alternatives. It's not that hard to outrank them, especially if what's ranking top is like G2 and stuff like that. So just by building a more comprehensive list that's built out on customer research, positions your offer as number one, has true claims about the others. You're not slagging anyone off or anything like that, because that's going to get you a legal threat. But you're positioning kind of how you're different, your offer in the market, putting some social proof, and then a clear call to action to get a trial, get a demo is quite a nice way to snap up signups. So there's quite a few things you can do bottom of the funnel. That's just a couple, but there's way more. So starting with prospects that are ready to have a sales conversation now, understanding what they'll be searching when they need the offer, if they're ready for a sales convo, if they're comparing two options, if they're looking for the best solution, and then building out an exhaustive list of those pages and getting those uploaded to your website is going to make a pretty good impact if you can do that fast.
A lot of value there. I was about to ask you why most companies, or there's this belief that SEO takes time to get results with, and you just answered already, right? I'm taking it is because most companies try to play the long play of getting more traffic now and start with top of funnel instead of bottom of funnel, and focusing on attracting the right kind of traffic, right? That's already market.
Yeah, and it's also velocity. Like, a lot of companies struggle because they have internal red tape. So, like, for example, for my site, Breaking B2B, we've ranked in the US, I think we're like position 5 or 6 for B2B SEO agency. And we only had the site live two months, man, because we can publish content so fast. Whereas if you're looking at some kind of B2B fintech, B2B SaaS, they have to go through like months and months of sign-off approval processes. So they're taking like 2 to 3 months to publish a page. If you're in a company where you can do exactly what I just said there, and publish quality content, but with speed, and you can smash competitors out of the water just because they've got to go through so much red tape to get stuff on their site.
That's, usual in B2B. The red tape, it's all over. Like it affects everything. There's always and it's funny. I think the other day I was recording another episode with Cody Schneider. I'm not sure if you're familiar, but he said that I'm a fan of companies that are early stage. And when I say early stage, I mean until they have HR. Because whenever they have HR, it starts
HR
getting...
legal.
Yeah, exactly. In compliance, well, don't get me started. If they have compliance, then nothing gets done. Or at least in the timing that it should get done, right? Because as you said, if you're ranking 5th for a B2B SEO agency in the US with only 2 months, right? It's for a reason. So yeah. Yeah, we already spoke about the future of search and social media becoming search engines. Already asked for your take on that. Since when and why? This is a good one. I'm really curious because you've been hosting the Breaking B2B podcast for quite a while now, top 10 B2B marketing podcasts. And, you clearly done a great job with that. So I'm wondering, and I saw on your website that you also offer like podcast production services. I'm curious, when and why did you start doing so? And how do you think that plays into the ecosystem or strategies that you put in place for clients and combining with SEO?
Yeah. So we, like you said, I've hosted my show Breaking B2B for probably 4 and a bit years now. And kind of after working with a bunch of different companies in B2B, be it tech, service providers, etc., every now and then we'd stumble across someone that would say like, why have you got a weird background, Sam? Like, what the hell is that? Then I'd explain that I run this podcast. And then I'd say, look, they'd be like, why do you run a podcast? And I say, well, It's useful for LinkedIn content. It attracts new audiences that are searching for information around our niche, builds trust on a closer level, gives me a ton of content to repurpose across LinkedIn, across the podcast, blog articles, video clips, YouTube, you name it. Really good pillar content. And also, there's some unusual plays with a B2B podcast, like you can use it for an account-based management, ABM play, where you invite like target prospects from dream accounts, strike up warm conversations with them and build up great relationships for future deals. You can speed up deals that are maybe moving slowly in the sales cycle by inviting those prospects on your show. You can do solo episodes on specific topics in your niche to build credibility and drive leads that way. You can do partnership plays, sponsor plays. Like there's so much opportunity from a podcast. So they'd have a conversation with us and then they'd say, oh, can you do one for us? So then we'd kind of offer that service both from the video outlet, the audio outlet, and help them kind of build it out to hit their business goals, whether that is like an ABM play or solo episode play or something else. So that's kind of how it started, really. I've just kind of slowly built it out.
Yeah, nice. I mean, I completely agree. That's why I'm running a podcast pretty early on the journey. And, you know, I'm aware it's a marathon more than anything. It's not a quarter thing. It's not something that you should like just try in a pilot or whatever. It's like, I think if you started, you should commit to it at least to 50, 100 episodes. And then from there on, you can see if you want to slow it down or whatever. But definitely it's something to stay long-term with. Otherwise, it's not worth it, I think. Otherwise, just try to do speaking engagements, you know, can do a live event on LinkedIn, can do a webinar and such, but a podcast is not for you, I think. You know, having run yours for 4 years and now doing it for clients, and you talked about business goals with the podcast, and it seems like a lot of companies in B2B have a hard time attributing results from a podcast and are reluctant to start one because of that. And so how do you tackle this with clients? And what do you think are like kind of like the key components or strategies that need to be in place with a podcast in order to drive revenue?
Yeah. You're exactly right. There's a few elements to it. You've got to start it with a few things in mind. Like you said there, you've got to start it thinking it's not a one and done. If we're going to do something that's maybe going to be so sporadic it's not even worth it, then our strategy would probably be better off guesting on industry relevant podcasts. Like just go onto a site called chartable.com and then you can literally search for the top podcasts in your niche, reach out to the hosts and guest on their shows, because that will be way better. Whereas if you're going it with more of a longer term strategy, i.e. maybe you want to use it in ABM play, maybe we're going to do some solo episodes to build credibility, we're going to repurpose the content, maybe use it through LinkedIn, put some paid spend behind it, maybe give it to our sales team for sales enablement, kind of video copy and that kind of stuff. So if you've got a clear goal on what the end result is, and you appreciate that it's going to take a bit of time to either, if you're doing the ABM route, kind of build up a guest list and start interviewing those folks, or if you're going to do it for a straight kind of inbound play, that's going to take a bit of time to build up that audience, going in cold, and knowing that strategy is going to take a little while, then that's best. And the other thing is you want to have a host several hosts that is actually fairly passionate about the topic. Because if they're not genuinely interested in either the guests or what they're speaking about personally, one, they're probably not going to see it through. They're not going to do more than a couple episodes or get bored or tired. And also that will shine through in either the audio or the video, that you'll be able to tell through the questions they ask guests or how they respond that they don't really care that much. And therefore the episode won't be that valuable to whoever's tuning in. So there are a few nuances to podcasting. And those are the kind of things you want to think about before you jump into a show, because it is easier just to guest on shows.
It is indeed. It is. Well, I mean, I guess for some people it might change though. Like guessing, for me, I think if you're a great guest, you usually talk more than the host, and that can be a little bit more draining than hosting. For me, hosting it's like you get to learn, you get to, you know, have a sneak peek into strategies and stuff. And, you know, in my case, I feel grateful for interviewing like people like you, you know, it's not, yeah. Either way, how do you frame these solo episodes? I'm curious because I think, you know, of course, like you can talk about topics that you're an expert in or news within the industry and stuff like that. But how do you keep it as entertaining as it would be, you know, conversation of 2 or 3? Don't you think it can get really boring so quickly? And how do you face that, especially with clients?
Boring for me or boring for the audience? Because probably yes to both.
Right, yeah, not only exactly, like especially for the audience I was meaning, but also for oneself, right? When you're recording and like you may stop for a minute and not come up with anything, like you gotta have it prepared, right? And
Yeah, yeah.
kind of like try to get the flow of the convo.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, for anyone tuning, I'm a bit of a nerd on this stuff. So I made a playbook recently, so you can just head to breakingb2b.com, hit the newsletter tab, and then there's a podcast guide that runs through this a lot better than I'll share now. But the what I do, I tend to split our show like 80%, 80-90% guest interviews. Like we publish one episode a week. 80 to 90% of the content is a guest interview, and probably 10 to 20% is a solo episode. And how do I build those solo episodes? Well, usually around things like maybe questions that I'm commonly getting asked on sales calls, or maybe objections on sales calls, maybe new topics, new industry trends. So, for example, with us, if Google have dropped a new update, if I've learned something new from talking to a guest on the show, if there's a new strategy that I'm passionate about, maybe I also build in public quite a lot. So I'll share kind of what's working with my own website and the SEO strategy there, how that's working to drive inbound, maybe stuff that I'm doing on LinkedIn. So a mix of kind of questions I get asked, learnings, building in public, sales call kind of objections, guest learnings, industry trends. Those kind of 5, 6, 7 pointers generally fuel the solo episode strategy. Or if there's a specific topic that I've not covered around, in my case, my niche, which is B2B SEO websites and podcast, that I think could be useful, like an ultimate guide to do this or an ultimate playbook. And the good thing about that is I can record it on Zoom or StreamYard we use. My producer can chop it up, and then I can then turn that into a nice big blog post that can rank, make a couple LinkedIn posts out of it, etc. So that's generally what we do. And then if I'm going to do a solo episode topic, normally to help me, I'll just make a Google sheet and I'll just put a few rough bullet points of the main things that I'm going to talk about. So I've got a rough guideline there, and then can jump ahead and record that in, I don't know, a few split takes on the video recording software.
Right, yeah, you can always in post production like cut it and whatnot, so it's not that big of a deal. But yeah, if it would be live, it would be different though, because you got to keep the audience engaged and like that's another story, right? Definitely.
Yeah, if you're doing like a live, I guess like a hosted show, like a round table, like the Revenue Vitals one, or there's a bunch of others since, then that's a bit different. Then I suppose at the same time you're getting like bringing on guests sometimes, or you're getting audience Q&A, so you're getting a bit more engagement rather than just the speaker solo for 40, 45 minutes. You're getting feedback, getting questions, getting responses. So yeah, it's like you say, it's worth thinking about what the strategy is, what the end result is you want from the podcast, and kind of working backwards from there.
Yeah, what are some of the best strategies that you're seeing these days with SEO that you think are not that much talked about, like that people might be missing out on, or especially on the technical side of things? Because I'm curious to know. You mentioned the H1s tags and stuff
Oh
like
yeah.
that, especially given the latest news from Google too. Like, is that affecting? I don't know. Let me know thought like of the latest in B2B SEO. Yeah.
Latest strategy. So I'm probably the worst person to talk to on technical SEO, because I don't do a ton of technical SEO. In fact, a lot of the stuff I post, especially on LinkedIn, says that technical SEO is like, most of it is BS. Like you get some agencies, they'll onboard companies and they'll spend months and months on technical audits, which unless you've got like thousands and thousands of pages on your site, is not usually that relevant. You can quite often get impact by doing the basics right. So like I said there, making sure that the website works well on mobile, tablet, PC, has a good load time, has a good page speed time, follows general best practices. So the URL is relevant to the keyword that you're going for, with dashes in between, that your H1 tag represents your main keyword, and then likewise on the H2 and H3 is set up properly, and yet your content is structured well, kind of does that technique I shared earlier to surpass and kind of be more useful, helpful, educational than whatever is ranking top on organic search now. So a lot of my strategies are light on technical SEO. They follow the foundationals, they follow the basics, but then I'll usually get a web team, one of my web dev guys, to focus on that. I'm more strategic, more content led, especially as I'm from a founder selling background. I want to drive impact. I want to drive leads from my content as soon as possible. Don't want to be messing around with anything technical that's not necessarily going to move the needle. or that can be done at a later date. So yeah, those strategies there really. I mean, that a lot of my strategies aren't really new, aren't unusual. I suppose not many people talk about the video stuff. So we've had, for example, with myself, a lot of the stuff I've done is a little bit different. Like if you Google, like I think B2B SEO guide and stuff like that, you'll see in the video section on Google, 2, if not 3 of my videos take up the real estate there. So what I was talking about earlier, where you're doing your money niches, when you're listing out like the main offers you want to focus on, plus the main industries, and then building out those pages. If you're weaving in like a YouTube how-to video, not only can that page get more click-throughs because the video might show up, but also you can rank in the video section. So that's one way to stand out, reviewing what competitors do. A lot of folks just, they look to rank pages. So they'll do the keyword research. They'll do a super long form page, be it an article, be it a product page, solution page, whatever, an alternatives page, but they'll jam a load of copy on the page, which might be great content, but you'll land on the page and it'll just look like a wall of text. So a lot of SEOs, technical SEOs, are guilty of this. So they'll get a page ranking, but it's not converting because it looks terrible. It looks awful. So that's where you need to have an eye for kind of UI design, UX design. So maybe you land on this page, but it's got a nice hero area that talks about kind of the problem you're fixing. It's got a nice graphic, a nice video, clear call to action. And then you've got the content, but it's laid out in a nice structured manner. So then you can clearly see, okay, this is the problem you're fixing. This is what happens if I don't fix it. This is who it serves. Here's some nice testimonial videos, some review videos. Here's some nicely laid out FAQs that I had, like how long does it take to set up? Do I get an account manager? Why do you cost so much compared to your competitors? How are you different in the market? So just by doing some of this stuff, not only can you rank better, but you can also have a better chance to convert, because no one wants to open a page that's just a wall of text. They want it to read well, to look good on their mobile, on their PC, etc. So a lot of those things are sometimes forgotten when it comes to just purely going for the rankings in SEO as well.
Interesting. Yeah, creative SEO for the win. I was wrong about the technical side of things. I mean, I was just curious because you mentioned the H1s, and I thought that that there will be something especially related. I meant to, since the Google update on AI generated content and whatnot, but I'm assuming, of course, like if you're not leveraging AI as much in the first place, then it doesn't affect you, right?
Yeah,
Go ahead, yeah.
For our clients, we normally just if we use AI at all, we'll just use it as a basis. Like if we're creating long form pages, we use it to get some ideas, to get some rough bullet points, some rough core pieces of how the page might be structured. And then we'll weave in kind of what does it need from SEO standpoint? What can we weave in from our customer research? And then build it out, get whoever we've got as the expert on the topic to build it out from there, really. So yeah, you can use it for some rough bullet points, some rough foundationals. Nothing wrong with that. Just I wouldn't say rely on it, because it's probably not going to resonate with whoever lands on it. It's less likely to convert, and it could get you impacted from Google. I'll add one more thing on unusual plays. Something we've seen good impact with is like doing that strategy I talked about earlier. And then also, like Google recently actually said that links play less importance, backlinks play less importance, but I've seen the opposite, especially from my own site. So I've backed up some of those main pages that I want to rank with some decent links, and a lot of companies will pay for backlinks, maybe from great sources, maybe from dodgy sources. Who am I to say? But from my experience, Google looks for relevancy, certainly from my own sites, and they want you to link from sites that have got authority but are relevant to the niche that you're talking about. So a really nice way to get some solid links is to go after or contact anyone in your network that's maybe a partnership, or an existing client, or a prospect that is not a direct competitor but serves the same ICP, goes after the same audience or niche, and then just offer them to create content together. So say you might reach out with a painfully short message like, hey, Steve, or hey, Jess, I've got a bit of an unusual content idea to drive inbound both our ways, something like that. And then you kind of create an article on each other's sites, which is relevant to your audience. Maybe, I don't know, whatever it is that's relevant to your niche. So for example, I did something we're partnered with Impactable, Justin Rowe. I built out a page that was like 10 unusual ways to reduce your B2B website bounce rate. And then I built out that article for him. He did a backlink to me, to my B2B SEO agency page. And then we did some other content together around podcasts and had him on the show. But not only is it a nice way to build links, and you'll probably have several people in your network that you can do that with quite quickly, so it can strengthen the authority of your site, probably boost the rankings for some of those more competitive keywords that you're trying to rank for. But also it just builds up a relationship with those partners, prospects, or potential clients. And then there might be some room for reciprocal business, like to send leads each other way or profit prospects each other way. So a bit like we're doing now with the podcast, it's another way to kind of drive new opportunities and also get some SEO value. That's one of my favorite unusual tips.
Love that. Yeah, that's interesting. It somewhat lies into part. Yeah, I mean it's partner marketing, but yeah, that was interesting. Now I'm thinking like if there would be a use case for that in our case. But yeah, I'll note that. I wanted to talk about your videos on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn feed, thanks to you, now feels like TikTok with the Ask the Public series, and I think it's a really great, like, creative idea and entertaining. It also, I don't know, it's just funny. I love it. For those who don't know, you started a series, right, of videos in which you just go out on the streets and you ask normal people about B2B marketing questions, right? And it's super funny, the responses that you get. So I wonder, I want to know, what response have you seen from your audience on it? I mean, I've seen the comments and I think it's a really good response, but wanted your take on that. And how did you come up with the idea? What's the strategy behind? And yeah, that's it.
Yeah. I think I just saw a series on YouTube. Like, how do I come up with the concept? I saw something on YouTube where some guy was going on the street but asking people, I think he was asking entrepreneurs in like affluent areas of America, like what business they're involved in, and asking like entrepreneurial questions. And I thought, I'd never seen this done on LinkedIn from a B2B marketing standpoint. Like, there's a gap in the market. Like, I'm constantly racking my brains for unusual ways that are relevant to my niche and my audience that can stand out a little bit. Like, we've done past series where I've dressed up in a Superman skin tight outfit as SEO man and ran around my local town and given tips and advice on SEO and got people's reactions. So I'm constantly thinking of ways to break free from the boring stuff that's usually in the LinkedIn feed. So yeah, essentially did what you did there. So made a list of quite questions that are quite nuanced to B2B, some around SEO, like what is SEO? What does B2B stand for? What do you think a marketer actually does? If I gave you $5,000, how would you spend it to grow a company? What makes a terrible website? Like, all these questions. There were some really funny answers. Oh, does cold calling still work? Where we got an answer from a police officer that basically went off on one, got really mad at me. So yeah, it's just funny, really. I think anything where you're getting live feedback and live reactions, people tend to enjoy. And yeah, we got some decent engagement. It's obviously quite top of the funnel content, really, but I suppose it's relevant to my niche. And then when it comes to LinkedIn, I tend to do a mix of that, and then also I do kind of more in-depth text-heavy posts where I'll share actionable tips, and seems to do okay.
Curious, how do you structure your LinkedIn organic strategy? Like, do you schedule the posts in advance? Do you go with the flow? Do you have like a plan for the next month or something? Or yeah, tell me about that.
I wish I had a scheduler. I'm not that organized. So I tend to, sometimes I'll schedule them like a day or two before. If I'm going on holiday, then I might schedule a few posts, sure. But usually I'll think of them as they go. So maybe we've released a podcast episode and I'll add a snippet for that. Or maybe I've had an interesting idea that I'll share, or maybe I'm doing something new with a client that I'll share, or we've had a win that I'll share, or there's a topic that's going on that I'll just kind of put about or record one of those videos. So it's very much what's going on now, what I'm thinking about now, and very mixed in terms of what I publish. Nothing too strategic, sadly.
Well, I mean, sometimes that's what works best. I find myself like it goes by seasons, I guess. Sometimes for me, I need to schedule the whole week ahead, and that's what I'm doing currently. And because there's a lot of client work or whatever, and it depends, right? But because honestly, if I had to like post every day myself, like, and think about what is going to be the post about, that's kind of like a little bit more draining, right? And yeah, I like to keep it more organized and plan in advance, but that's to each its own. I want to know more. You mentioned video before on YouTube too, and I think we talked about the Ask the Public series. How has video in general helped you grow breaking B2B, and what are some benefits of doing video that you value the most?
Yeah, I suppose there's a few angles, right? So YouTube is great because just like SEO, it's all searchable content. So if you're creating content and it's answering questions or that people are actually looking for, that's helpful, that's relevant, that people have demand for, then that can be searched. So YouTube's the second biggest search engine after Google, so that can be not only drive kind of views for kind of the short term, but for months or even years to come. So there's huge value in evergreen content. So it's really good for that. Like we get a steady trickle of inquiries from people that watch the YouTube channel and kind of follow that for years, even though we've got, I guess, fairly small following on YouTube, like 1.5K or so subs, that still generates some inquiries. And then from kind of the smaller clips that we'll publish on LinkedIn, I suppose it's putting a face to the name, right? So if someone's only publishing kind of text posts or image posts, you don't quite know what that person's like you don't know what they sound like, you're not quite sure on their tone of voice, how they come across, whereas it strengthens, it gives you a deeper level, I guess, a deeper likening or disliking, which is fine. In marketing, you want to repel prospects that might not be the best fit for you. That's something we talk about a lot with how you build out your website. So it can either attract people to you or do the opposite, which I think is good. Allows you to share a bit more of a point of view as well, I feel, and how you come across. So yeah, we tend to do a mix of kind of video content, text and image posts, and seems to work okay.
Nice. Yeah. How long have you been doing video for, by the way? Like video content?
I don't know. I guess properly since we started the podcast. So maybe 4 years, 4 months, something like that.
And most importantly, I want to know, like, how did you feel before when press recording at the beginning, and how the creation process was, right? Like coming up with ideas, packaging the content too, because packaging is a big thing. A lot of people don't talk about it. It's not about creating the content; it's about how you distribute it and deliver it, right? Thumbnails, previews, etc., right? Hooks, all that stuff. Yeah, personally, especially, how have you navigated that journey?
Yeah, in terms of actually, I suppose there's two parts. In terms of when I first started doing it, then when I first started recording, I was nervous as hell, man. I was speaking to my wife yesterday saying when I did my first podcast interview that I was literally shaking. Like my hands were going like this. I was so nervous. I'd never really done anything like that before. I was stuttering, ums and ahs all over the place. Like didn't really know what I was doing. Still enjoyed it. And by the end, I was really happy and learnt a lot from the first guest, and slowly went from absolutely awful to slightly better to slightly better again to an okay level. But it takes, just like anything, it's like riding a bike, right? It takes time to learn. You get more and more steady, more and more confident. And like myself on the podcast, I went from just asking scripted questions to guests to then challenging them, giving them rebuttals, giving my point of view, to being a lot more confident. And then on the production side of things, I mean, I used to edit and produce all the videos myself. Nowadays, there's, of course, a lot of tools that you can use and software to chop up clips and stuff. But now we have a producer, just since we had a kid like 3 years ago, just to have the time my end to mess around and produce also. We've got him that luckily Dan is able to help us with all the content production on that side of things. So it frees up my time a bit.
Nice. What do you think is the future for LinkedIn organic growth? Recently, we've seen LinkedIn roll out a video scrolling beta that seemed like it's literally like TikTok. I'm not sure if you were aware of that, but what do you think that says about the future of LinkedIn? Do you think it's going to become less professional or less business driven? Because some people thought that, including that feature would make LinkedIn like all the other platforms, and it would lose its value. So I don't know. What's your take on that?
I don't know, man. Like, if you've seen the stuff that I've posted, then you probably can tell that I'm not quote unquote that professional. And try to do most of the stuff I try and do, especially from a video standpoint, I try and do different to what corporate folks are doing, just so we can stand out, give our point of view across the industry a bit more. But I think it's going to be interesting. Like, I do want access to that video beta. I've not seen it yet just because they haven't granted me access. But I think it'd be interesting It'll be interesting to see if they keep it rather than it's just going to be a fad. I don't know if you remember when LinkedIn rolled out the stories feature. Did you see that? Like that lasted what, a month or two, and then they cut it off. They rolled it out for a month or two, and then it was gone. But it was never popularized. Like the stories never got much reach. It was kind of destined to fail.
I'm sure a lot of people didn't even realize, but it's the same with Meta too. They keep rolling out features, they test them for a while, and nobody notices, or a lot of people hate on them, and then they just delete them, right? So I hope it's not the same case for LinkedIn now with this, but
I think it'll be tricky. Like, I think it's a cool idea if it allows you to easily flick between those options. Like you can flick between the scrolling video feed and then your traditional feed where you can still read like insightful text-only posts. If you've got that option, I think it's gonna be sweet. If it forces people to video only, that might not be the best idea.
I agree. That's a really good point. Yeah, I think they should keep both too. And it's great to have one with video. But let's be honest, even if you keep the option of watching consuming the two types of feeds, don't you think that most people will lean long term to using more the video one? Just because it's more easier to consume.
It's easier to just sit on your ass and just flick through the video feed, that's for sure. But I suppose it's also thinking like everyone prefers to consume content in different ways. Like some people prefer to read stuff, some people prefer to listen, some people prefer to watch. So I think certainly from the people that I've learned for, there's people that I follow on LinkedIn that I kind of respect highly in their relevant niche and industry, and I've learned a ton just by reading their long form posts. So I'll quite often just read the post, read the text as opposed to watching the video. Sometimes I watch the video, it depends where I am. So I think there is still value in that too.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, for me, what can I say? It's all about every day I would choose video, just watching it. It's way easier. You get more entertained. As you said before, it conveys more, et cetera, right? So, but yeah, that's interesting. Okay. Well, do you anything to promote regarding I don't know, something that's coming up for you, events, webinar, or whatever? And if not, where can people find you?
Yeah. So there's three main ways. You can follow me on LinkedIn. I'm sharing daily tips, ideas, videos around B2B SEO and websites. Check out the podcast, Breaking B2B. Much like this, I interview actual practitioners in marketing. We share ideas, what's working today. Or if you've perhaps listened to me drone on for the last 40 minutes and you thought maybe my website isn't kind of driving the amount of qualified leads I wish from organic search, then get in touch with us at breakingb2b.com.
Love that. Well, you already know, guys. I have to say, I didn't say this before, but I knew Ryan Paul Gibson from your podcast, so definitely worth checking out for whoever's listening.
Cool, man.
Awesome.
Thank you for listening to the Founder Video Podcast with Will Martin, and we'll see you on the next episode.